Hey, what's up? Back at it with another episode of Bill and Tony's Excellent Adventure. That's Bill Althouse. I'm Tony Stevens. We're live from the Sandy's Restaurant Studios just outside of Kansas City in Blue Springs, Missouri. I want to remind you all our full podcast episodes are on YouTube, Spotify, and Patreon. You can check out the reels on TikTok, hook up with us on Facebook, Instagram. Also, please like and subscribe and leave us comments. You know, there have been several topics that we've spoken about in the last couple of weeks that have really generated a lot of interest from you guys as far as leaving comments. We really do appreciate that. Let's get right into it. Sports hot topics of the week. Spring training is underway. So who to watch for this year? Don't you think it's got to be the two young guys, Caglione and Carter Jensen, Cags and Carter?
Carter Jensen, they got to throw him in early in the season, not put the pressure on him that they put on Cags last year.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Salvi, I love Salvi more than maybe any player in the history of that team, but he needs to be playing more first base or DH.
Yeah.
I'm expecting big things from Caglione this year, but I was expecting big things from him last year too.
Yeah, I think what you said earlier, though, the pressure. But
exactly.
I'd be really surprised. And, you know, Bill, it's not when things have changed so much. If you hit 240 or 250, you suck. No, that's the major league average now.
I know it.
If that dude hits 240 and hits 30 home runs,
I'll take that.
Gonna be?
No,
yeah, right.
Nobody's going to argue with that.
No, and with that rotation, if we got a healthy Reagans, Lugo, Cameron, Waka, and Bubic, I think we're going to be in pretty good shape. I think this team's going to compete for
I do too.
Maybe a division title. I don't know, but at least for one of those playoff spots. So we'll see what happens with that. Not a whole lot of stuff going on with the Chiefs. They did hire a running backs coach who was one of the best of this generation, DeMarco Murray. And remember, Eric Bieniemy was not that shabby of a running back himself. So
Colorado,
is it me, or do you think that maybe they're putting a little more emphasis on the running game this year?
Well, it always scares me to death when Mahomes runs the ball. You know, it used to be fun. It's like, what's he going to do this game? Now it's like, I hope he doesn't get hurt.
Well, now after a leg injury,
yes.
I hope they don't hold him back too much, but because he's got to be what he is. But
exactly,
but I think you could see where a lot of that emphasis is going to be.
Well, you know, and there's people are talking about worries about the offense. I mean, it was injuries that killed the offensive line last year.
Yeah.
And those guys hopefully are going to be back and healthy this year.
Yeah. Mavericks and Comets.
Oh, buddy.
Boy. So, Mavs, what's up? Still winning?
They lost the 14-game winning streak.
Yeah.
And now are on an 8-game winning streak. And have won 9 of their last 10. Now, 37, 8, 1-1, 76 points. That's atop the league. The next closest team to them has 62 points. They're killing it.
Yeah.
And this Logan Turness, this rookie, my God, the kid is he's just unbeatable. He has a sub 200 or a 2.00 goals against average. He's won 13 games. He's 13-2. And when Jack LaFontaine left for the Coachella Firebirds in the AHL, he was 17-2-1 with a 2.21. It's ridiculous. No, they have, and I'll say it right now. Marcus Crawford is going to be the MVP of the league. Mm-hmm. He's a defenseman who leads the league in scoring.
How can that be?
I mean, he 47 assists, which is unheard of, 11 goals, 58 total points. Last month, in hockey, there's a statistic, plus minus. Mm-hmm. That means if you get a plus if you're on the ice when a team scores, you get a minus when an opponent scores against you. Yeah. He is plus 43 for this year, and he is plus 16 last month, and it's the second time he's won the plus-minus award in the league. So they have not skipped a beat. Tato had, he's got it going.
He's a
great. And, people want to come here, players want to come here because the Mavericks encourage guys to go up. And, you know, I mean, you hate to lose a LaFontaine, but look at what you have in Turness.
Yeah.
And I think that Marcus Crawford is going to be the next Andrew Courtney, a guy who just enjoys a long, very, very successful league in this league. So it's going to be fun.
And they just signed a 3-year extension at Cable Dom.
Yeah.
So they're not going anywhere.
And that surprised me.
Yeah.
I have been asking sources and, you know, and all I hear about is the 5,200 arena, 5,200 seat arena.
You thought they were going to
I thought they were gone. I thought this was going to be their last year. So
Yeah.
I'm really
Three
pleased.
more for
years.
sure. Of course, last week we went down to the Kansas City Soccer Dome and talked with the 3 big dogs on the Kansas City Comets, and that ball game right after that was. I mean, that was a game for the ages. Unfortunately, the Comets lost it in overtime, but they still get a point.
They get a point.
You get a point for that.
Well, they tie it up with 2 seconds
2 seconds
left.
to go in the game
After
having a 3-goal lead.
Yeah.
I mean, it was
5-2 lead, and they blew that.
It was crazy, but it was a good game. And they're down to their last 6 games now?
6 games.
Yeah. And
5 games they play against San Diego, who beat them Sunday night.
Yeah, so 4 more against them. 4 of the last 6 are against them.
Yes. And you know, it's interesting. Milwaukee won this week, so they're now in first place. They're 10-3-2 for 30 points. The Comets are in second place, 9-5-3, 28 points.
Yeah.
San Diego, 9-4-2, 27 points.
This is going to come down to that last
game. And Milwaukee and San Diego have played 2 fewer games than the Comets. So they're playing this week. The Comets don't play again till Sunday. So Sunday they'll all have played the same amount of games.
They'll all be even. That's going to go down probably the last
2 seconds.
2 seconds. Yeah, you're
exactly.
thinking what I'm thinking. Yeah, that's good.
You know, and you look at the leaders in the league. Rion Marquez 36 points total, number 1. Reguette has 32. That's third.
Those guys are awesome.
Rion and Reguette each have 21 goals.
Yeah.
Rion, 15 assists, first in the league.
Yeah.
Points per game, Rion, 2.6 points. That's unreal.
Dude.
That's just unheard of.
Such a neat kid too.
Such a good guy. You know, he and Chad Vandergrift played really well off each other in that interview. I think they were having as much fun as we were.
They did, and they played great ball game the other night too. So we got to lean on those guys.
Yes.
The Daytona 500 winner. Michael Jordan, 6-time NBA champ, now a winner too. That was his. Tyler Reddick won the Great American Race, and with the last lap pass, he only led 1 lap out of that whole race. But it was the one that counted the most. And Michael Jordan, who just now turned 63 years old, made it known that he has a size 13 finger for that ring that he's going to get for that Daytona 500. That's pretty neat.
That's awesome.
On the other hand, Kansas State, there's a lot of turmoil going on there in that basketball program. Jerome Tang is out. I mean, there's no shock. I mean, I thought they were just, he'd be out at the end of the season. Well, they didn't waste any time. But what's interesting about this is ESPN reported that they're firing him for cause, which that's usually not stipulated when you fire a coach.
Yeah.
And for cause means what that means. That means
he did something.
He did something which violates the stipulations in your contract, which means we don't have to pay you. And you know what this buyout was? $18 million. They were going to have to come up with $18 million to let Jerome Tang go, which they still might. I don't know how they how these things are disputed. But did you see his press conference after they lost to Cincinnati?
No.
They lost to Cincinnati at Bramlage, and people were wearing paper bags in the student section, and there were people handing out paper bags and all this. Well, he had his post-game conference, and he said, they asked him, they go, what'd you see that? He goes, well, I'd put a damn paper bag on too if that was me. He said, we've got guys on this team that don't deserve to wear our jerseys, and I'm telling you, some of them won't be back next year. And that didn't go over well. K-State's a very conservative university, and let's just leave it at that. Yeah. And that's what they're saying is the cause. that he embarrassed, blah, blah, blah. So I don't know. Well, I don't
Interesting.
know how those things go. Yeah, it is.
Well, he should go to the NBA. That's just the normal fare for the NBA. Players and coaches hating each other.
Yeah. Another NFL story. President Trump has pardoned 5 former NFL players. You get that look on your face.
Where does this come from?
I don't know. I didn't even know these guys were.
I didn't
know that you're up for a presidential pardon.
I know.
Okay, so here.
Well, and Joe Klecko.
Yeah, right.
He was with that.
He lied to a federal grand jury about auto insurance fraud.
Right.
Well, yeah, but that happened 4 years ago, but I guess that stuff stays on your record. So he got a pardon. Nate Newton, he was arrested with 175 pounds of marijuana in his trunk. I don't know why the hell I'm laughing, but he's been pardoned. Remember Jamal Lewis?
I do.
He had some really good years with the Ravens.
Yes.
He pleaded guilty in 2004 to use a cell phone to try to set up a drug deal. He got caught, and he also got pardoned. Travis Henry, running back. Remember, I remember him with the Broncos.
Travis.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
He got 3 years for financing an interstate drug ring. He'd been pardoned. And one of the guy that actually played for the Chiefs for a while. Remember Billy Cannon?
I do.
Billy Cannon.
Now this was way
back. This
back.
goes back to Houston Oilers.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, right.
Right.
But he was sentenced to 5 years in prison 40 years ago for taking part in a counterfeit money printing operation. They caught him when they see on the bills in dog we trust. But they all got pardoned.
Wasn't that $100 bills that they printed up?
It wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't like here. Take
exactly,
$10. No,
exactly,
it was a lot of money. But those guys they all got pardoned. This is a story that it makes you shake your head. The Royals been looking for that big outfield bat. Yeah. That's blah blah blah. That's been going on for a year. I think they got their big outfield bat, and I think his name's Jack.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah, but anyways, there was rumors that a lot of rumors going around. I think some of them may have been true that the Royals were looking to trade for Nick Castellanos, who played a lot of years in the division with Detroit.
Right.
But he's been with the Phillies and been in those playoffs, the World Series with the Phillies, they've been trying to move him. He signed a $100 million contract a few years ago, and
I know
he's a good power hitter. He's a good guy. He's always been a hothead. He's always been, one of those guys.
Well, do you remember the All-Star game?
Yeah.
One player was vehemently against Jacob Mizorowski, the Green Valley
Was that
kid.
Castellanos?
Was Castellanos. And I
doesn't
talked to Jake,
surprise
and
me.
he said he never said a word to him the whole All-Star time.
Well, this has now come out. It happened June 16th. Phillies had a 3-1 lead against the Marlins going into the bottom of the 8th. And the Phillies manager, Rob Thompson, took out Castellanos from the game for defensive purposes. Mind you, all of the baseball metrics, these managers make these decisions. Yeah. Castellanos' outs above average was -12, which, by the way, was tied for last among 110 outfielders. So, Rob Thompson had a right to do that.
Yeah.
But not according to Nick Castellanos, because he got into it with the manager and then left and then came back in with an El Presidente. That's a beer. He came back into the dugout after he got removed from the game with a beer, and he started in some more. Well, he actually got reprimanded by some of his teammates. And his teammates
good.
Grabbed the beer from him and said, "Dude, you need to get out of here with that beer." And he got signed by the Padres a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter.
I know.
Padres are going for it. They got to deal with the Dodgers in that division.
Ugh.
So
I know it.
And another beer story: the Minnesota Twins this year, that team's not going to be very good, and their attendance has not been very good. So they're going to do $2 beer nights
every night.
I'm not sure, but it's going to be at least once a week. And remember when they did that? It happened back in, Chicago or something like 30, 40 years ago on disco night?
On disco night.
Yeah.
And all the disco records got burned on the field. They
Trashed.
couldn't play the second game of a doubleheader that night because they did it between the two games.
Yeah.
Oh.
I'm telling you. And let's be honest here. What's been going on in Minneapolis and in Minnesota with people that, I'm just going to say it this way, are unhappy about things?
Yes.
So I don't know if $2 beer night in Minnesota, or for that matter, anywhere,
yeah.
is a good idea.
Instead of that, go back. We were talking about this before the game with Tony Jr. Have GA. Let people get in, even if they do it like after the second or third inning. $5, you can come in, you can watch a game. Everybody benefits. $2 beer night, I wouldn't support that.
I think all of us, all three of us in this room, those are the only games we went to as kids.
Yeah.
We used to spend, I'm dating myself now, but when the Kansas City A's were in town, we'd go out there on Tuesday nights because Tuesdays when they had double headers.
Yep.
So we'd go out there for $1.50 and watch 2 ball games for $1.50.
I know it.
That was gazillion years ago, but I'm with you. There should be a GA section. Let's move on to music and entertainment news, brought to you by Vito's Original Pizza here in Blue Springs. There is a young lady that has made a significant impact on the Billboard Hot 100. It's a number one. It's a big deal in the industry right now because the Hot 100 is all format.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the all format chart, and rarely is it ever done by a country singer.
No.
And there's a young lady. You ever heard of Ella Langley?
No.
She is amazing, and she wrote a song called "Choosing Texas," and she's singing it, and that thing has been number one for 11 weeks now on the country chart, and now has topped the Billboard 100 chart for the first time ever simultaneously. That's never happened.
Wow, man.
I mean, that's like
good for her.
That song now is kind of like the way 9 to 5 was.
Okay.
And it's a really, really neat song. It's really good. Are you a fan of Stephen A. Smith?
No.
That didn't take long. He's thinking, is that no too? I
think he's smart. He's one of those guys like Howard Cosell. Mm-hmm. You watch him if you love him or you hate him.
Oh yeah, there's no gray.
There is no gray area with Stephen, and I know where this is going. And I'm like,
you've heard about this? Yeah, he said he's not ruling out a 2028 campaign bid for president. You guys are both laughing. We don't need to run the laugh track.
What type of ego does a guy like Stephen A. Smith have, thinking that? Well, Jed Bush would get more votes than Stephen A. Smith.
He says he. But on the other hand, this is so typical Stephen A. Smith. I have no desire to be a politician, but I might want to run for president. So he said actually told Bob Costas this in a recent interview. He said, I'm not ruling it out because I'd love to be on the debate stages with those other people.
Now that's something I have. Back in the day of Rush, I knew Rush Limbaugh when he was a flunky in the PR department for the Royals, going down handing George Brett a dozen balls to sign. And he said George would give you that look like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I think he's brilliant. He's just not my cup of tea.
I've seen him. He's been on Fox News or News Nation. I've seen him on some of those.
He's been in a lot of things.
He holds his own, but then he goes into the Stephen A. Smith character.
Well, and walking into the games with the swagger and the cowboy hat and the cigar. I'm just not in it.
And then, he still wants to fight LeBron. I mean, it's like LeBron will whoop his ass and stomp him dry and it'd be all over.
Yeah.
I don't know. So don't be surprised. Oh, and by the way, which political party he said, I'm going to be on that debate stage, I'm pretty sure, as a Democrat. So we'll see.
Really?
Yeah,
No,
that's what he says.
that kind of surprises
Well,
me.
I thought he was more of a conservative.
I did too, but
in listening to him.
Yeah.
But maybe he hasn't made up his mind. I don't know.
Wow.
One of the biggest comebacks of the year announced so far involves a pair of shoes. Air Jordan 11 Space Jam shoe is coming back at the end of the year for the 30th anniversary of the movie with Michael Jordan we were talking about. So
that was a great movie. I went to see it twice.
Yeah.
And took my kids saying they want to see it twice. I don't think they did, but Dad wanted to see it. I love that. Burr Murray was so good in that.
So December 12th, $235 for the pair of shoes. I know you can afford to buy 2-3 pairs of those easily. The Kansas City Star Building downtown. That property was talked about a lot. About maybe that's where you put the
stadium,
New Royal Stadium, but I guess that kind of went by the wayside. I don't know unless something were to come out. But there's a new nightclub that's in there now. It's called Ricochet, or it's about to go in. It's 10,000 square foot portion of that building. So I don't know how big was that building. That building was 100,000. I mean, so So games, ping pong, darts, bumper pool, shuffleboard. I mean, booze. So I mean, what do you think? I mean, is downtown asking for more trouble? I mean, it's not like downtown is I mean, you got the Power and Light District and all that stuff, which is. Yeah, there's not a whole lot of trouble going on down there, but I don't know. Putting another bar, to me, I think that place is probably going to end up being a strip club. But
it could be.
I don't know, man. I don't know. I mean, if you want downtown baseball, I don't know. We'll see. All right, so we got some legal news this week. Do you remember when Morgan Wallen came to town? I think it was summer of 24. And the show was delayed for almost an hour, and people could never figure out what Morgan Wallen had to have been drunk. This and that. Yep. Well, we know what happened, and it's not a good thing.
This is crazy.
This is a really, really disturbing story. So that Arrowhead was sold out that night, and before the show, there was a man and his wife were seated, and there was a post that said, I think I have the exact quote of what that post said. It said, Mr. Wallen at Arrowhead with the wife. This is the guy making the post on Twitter, on X. If he brings out Mahomes or Kelce, I'll take the effing shot. F them. Also, F you, Taylor Swift.
Man.
So the FBI is always at one of those concerts when they know that Mahomes or Kelce or anybody of significance.
Sure.
The FBI was there, and the FBI found that guy. It took them 40 minutes to find him, but they did find that guy. And this past week, Jackson County Prosecutor Melissa Jackson is asking a judge not to dismiss the charges against this guy who was from Illinois, the 24-year-old goofball. And following that incident, when the FBI got there, they charged him with felony second degree, making a terroristic threat.
Listen, you don't want to mess around with that stuff. You've got to be stupid to do something like that.
Well, his answer, in my opinion, is kind of stupid, but I don't know. Maybe you guys disagree. You can leave a comment about this. His name is Aaron Brown. He and his attorneys are asking that the court dismiss the charges on the basis that his post was protected by the First Amendment.
No.
See, I disagree.
No, nothing like that. You don't go into a movie theater and cry fire.
No.
I mean, that's not protected.
Here's their statement. While Mr. Mahomes and Mr. Kelce were present at the concert, their presence was not known to the public, nor is there any evidence suggesting that Mr. Brown had any knowledge of their presence. Additionally, it is important to note that the social media account at issue only had 92 followers. That doesn't make any damn sense.
No.
To me, it's your First Amendment right is to go ahead and say that, but that First Amendment right does not preclude that you're going to be in trouble for saying that. So,
No.
and the guy admitted that, this was a stupid mistake. And his wife said they actually posted it while they were driving there. So that doesn't matter either.
Oh.
But
no.
I don't know. That's not a good thing. That's you can't.
It's interesting that you would mention that while they're driving there, because I'm thinking this guy had to be 10 sheets to the wind to send something like that over the internet.
Didn't think of that.
Yeah.
But if he was and he was driving, there's another
Well,
charge.
that's exactly.
So the guy's not very smart. One other bit of legal news in Kansas City, the city passed an ordinance just this past week banning unregulated drugs that the city said pose a risk to the well-being of the public from being sold in the city. And what I'm talking about are what they call those gas station drugs. That's 7-0. What is that? Tell me if I'm saying it wrong, Tone. Kratom, K-R-A. He don't know either. So none of us take this shit.
That's how you spell it.
K-R-A-T-O-M.
I don't know how you pronounce it, yeah.
And, people that are younger are saying, oh, you guys don't know nothing. But it's 7-0, of which I had, not 7-Up, Bill.
Yes. Yeah.
7-0 has been described as more potent than heroin. It is, which is a Schedule I drug. That was a 13-0 vote. And, the council people saying, this is all comes down to prevention, and we don't need to be gas station drugs are sold virtually with no oversight and no safety testing. However, those claiming otherwise who say that 7-0 is relatively harmless and that the compound can be used to treat chronic health issues and help those recovering from substance abuse. I don't think that anybody that has a kid or a brother or sister or a parent that's using drugs needs to be using gas station drugs or products to try to heal.
No.
Maybe I'm wrong. One particular person, National Policy Director for Holistic Alternative Recovery, his statement reads, "It's disappointing that they're not grounding their policy making in science. The science demonstrates that 7-0 products are relatively harmless. Almost 1 billion servings have been consumed with almost no serious adverse effects."
Almost.
So what is almost in relativity to 1 billion?
Yeah.
There's only been 100,000 people that got sick over this shit. But I don't know. In a totally unrelated drug story, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. says he's not scared of germs because he used to snort cocaine off of toilet seats.
Not scared of a germ. I used to snort cocaine off of toilet seats.
I heard that, and I just knew the next cold open in Saturday Night Live was, and it wasn't. And I was so why would you even say that? Every time I look at him now, I'm going to think of him snorting coke off a toilet seat. Not a smart thing, but consider the source with many of the things he's involved with.
All right. So we got some weird news of the week. I think this is just perfect for us. The University of Maryland is seeking volunteers for new nationwide study on flatulence. Participants will be mailed. Stop it. Participants will be mailed. Remember we talked about smart toilets on the last episode?
Yes.
Participants will be mailed smart underwear, which has sensors to track intestinal gas. This is a legit freaking study, so don't be grinning over there. Scientists say previous studies didn't account for a lot of variables, leading to the belief that folks break wind only 10 to 12 times a day. But researchers... What are you laughing at? Researchers think the daily average is more like 32 times a day for healthy adults. That ain't true for me. The goal of the study is to help doctors determine what's normal and when folks might need medical intervention for breaking wind. And this thing is, the volunteers are available online on chartyourfart.com.
No.
Well, I don't know about that, but It is. I don't have the website yet, but it is available online. Just think, you know what? We could change our names to Farticus and Sir Farts a lot.
Yes.
So why
Yes,
don't you
we
get on
could.
that,
Yeah.
Captain Flatulence, and
That's
get
right.
online and get
That's
us
right.
signed up 32 times a day. Come on, fess up. You know that you know that you're cracking gas at least
Oh, buddy, that's
38 times
kids
a day.
are starving across the world, and they're putting money into a trial like that. Thank you, U.S. government.
I wonder if it pays anything.
Well, if it pays something, I may get some of those underpants.
I'll tell you what, give me them smart drawers.
That's right.
I'll be good to go. So
Wonder if they make you smarter.
I don't know, but they'll make me laugh.
Well, and that's something we need.
Special guest coming up next.
Baseball was once played in an era when only the ball was white, and it produced an era of excitement, hope, and dreams for the players who made Negro League Baseball a part of transformation. From a society filled with doubts and hatred to a society where brotherhood soon became a reality rather than a dream. Welcome to the Negro League Baseball Museum. We are visiting with baseball royalty today in a palace that Kansas City is so fortunate to call its home. The Negro League Baseball Museum, 18th and Vine. Bob Kendrick, to call you my friend is something very, very special. And for you to do this in this busy time is very special. I don't know anyone who hasn't come to the Negro League Museum and hasn't made a trip back, hasn't gone back with their friends. That's what I've done so many times. And now, here we are. This is a legacy to an era where only the ball was white in professional baseball. This is an era where unbelievable players like Hank Aaron, Willie Mays, Jackie Robinson, the immortal Jackie Robinson, the first player to ever break the color line in Major League Baseball. And Bob, this is your second home. It should be Kansas City's first home to anyone that wants to find out about one of the greatest legacies in the history of professional sports. And thanks for inviting us down.
Man, it's great to see you. And first and foremost, congratulations on your retirement from your first day job. And what a career that has been. And we so appreciate the support and advocacy that you've given this museum through those years of your journalism career, which has been so meaningful to us. And so it's great to be on the show. Thank you guys for having me.
Well, it's our pleasure. You know, the Negro Leagues not only showcased exceptional athletic talent, but it fostered innovation, resilience, a rich cultural tradition. But the downside of that was it was hidden for so long. And, you know, when I grew up in this city. I went to school in this neighborhood, and I have a grandson that plays with urban youth. So I got some history down here, and I'm a wonderful baseball fan. I love baseball. Used to go to the games up 22nd in Brooklyn. But little did I know that even in my lifetime, so much I didn't know.
Yeah.
But it's all here.
It's here, you know, and honestly, fellas, I don't think that there was ever a time that people didn't want to know about the Negro Leagues. They just simply had no way to know about the Negro Leagues because this wasn't in the pages of American history books.
Yes.
And as I've oftentimes said, most of us went through our own formal educations without knowing one of the most significant chapters, not in baseball history, but in American history.
Yes.
And that's that rich, compelling, inspirational story of the Negro Leagues. And so when this museum came along in its very humble fashion in 1990, when it was established in a little one-room office, the dream of my friend, the late, great Buck O'Neill, was to elevate the awareness of this rich piece of baseball and Americana. And they all had a steadfast belief that this story deserved to be told, it needed to be preserved, and that it could also serve as a tool of hope and inspiration for those who would encounter it, particularly our young folks who would encounter this story. And that set us on this journey. And honestly, we haven't looked back since then. And the overwhelming response from those who come into this museum is almost as if it's an awakening.
Yes.
Yeah, you are amazed by what you learn. But to be honest, guys, they are so a little bit dismayed by the fact that they just now had an opportunity to learn it. So you do question.
Yeah. Well, 1980, I went to the All-Star game in Los Angeles, and Joe DiMaggio was there, and he was sitting back in his locker, very gracious, talking to a group of media people, and somebody asked him who the greatest pitcher was he ever faced. He didn't hesitate. Satchel.
Yeah.
Satchel Paige. And he told the story about how Satch would, if he got a little bit angry at somebody, he'd take a little piece of paper from his chewing gum, roll it up, put it on home plate, and that was his home plate.
That was his home plate.
And the first time Joe faced him, that didn't happen, but he struck him out on 3 pitches.
Yeah. No, Satchel was the truth, man.
Oh.
Satchel was the truth. In my estimation, my own humble opinion, he is the GOAT.
Yeah.
He is the greatest pitcher of all time.
Yep.
And that's not to take away from all the great pitchers, both in the Negro Leagues as well as in Major League Baseball history, because you had some great ones. But you see, Satchel had everything that you needed. He had the longevity. By his estimation, he pitched in over 2,600 games. Because he was pitching 2 or 3 innings almost every single day. Everybody wanted to see the old man pitch.
Yes.
So when you look at the longevity, the great stuff, he had it, and the charisma. So when you package all of that, there's nobody else quite like Satchel. Because you'd have a guy, he threw as hard as Satchel, such and such threw as hard as Satchel. His stuff was as good as Satchel. But you rarely find one that has all 3 of those elements. And that's why he was, as they would say today, must-see TV. Everybody wanted to see this old man pitch. When he would ride into the towns, the entire towns would shut down to watch him pitch. You've not seen anybody quite the likes of Satchel Paige. We've got this phenom by the name of Shohei Ohtani today, where people actually want to see him. You want to be in the ballpark because you know it's going to be electric. Well, man, that was Satchel back in the late 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and
60s. Yeah, because then Bob, the reason why is this: the first time I heard the name Satchel Paige, I'm about 10 years old. So, and Satchel Paige was going to pitch in a Kansas City A's game.
Absolutely.
Now, I used to go to bed at night listening to the A's, and I'd cry most of the nights because they weren't any good. but I remember that they had this promotion that this Satchel Paige, and I was wondering, who is that? Yeah. So they said, and I remember him. He was sitting in a rocking chair.
Absolutely.
Am I right about this?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. That's the truth.
This is what I'm telling you what I remember. Down the right field line,
I
think, at Municipal Stadium, and they had him doing that for about a month or 2, and then he came, and I was thinking, well, wait a minute, he sounds like an old man. I'm 10, 9 or 10, and he did come in and pitch.
He sure did.
1 hit through 3 innings, and
3 innings.
I was there, Bob. I saw that.
And you know who else was there? Our friend Rick Sutcliffe.
Oh, Rick was
he really?
Sut
he's
was
never
there.
told me.
Sut was there, and he does. Charlie Finley.
He owned the team. Yeah.
And for those who are listening who may not recall the fact that the Oakland A's started here in Kansas City. They were the Kansas City A's.
Don't remind me. 1968 was the saddest year of my life.
Yeah, no, it was for a lot of people. Yeah. But they stunk when they were here. But when they went to Oakland, they took off.
Oh, I know.
All these great players. But Finley, love him or hate him, he was one of the greatest promoters this game has ever seen.
Was he ever?
Yeah, and then Satchel was one of the game's greatest self-promoters. So this was a marriage made in heaven.
Well, he had to be close to, was it late 40s then, Bob?
They say that Satchel, because this was 1965.
That's right.
1965. Yeah. And if you believe that Satchel was born in 1906, which I absolutely do not believe. But for the sake of this story, we'll say that he was born in 1906. This would make him now 59 years old.
Oh, my God.
And he pitches, as you recall, three shutout innings, giving up only one hit against the Boston Red Sox. And it is a great trivia question. 1965 Boston Red Sox, who got that lone hit off of Satchel?
Rico Petrocelli.
Was
no.
it Rico? No, who was it?
Hall of Famer, Carl Yastrzemski.
Yes.
Yes. Yaz
Thanks
gets a,
for. I
Yaz
told
gets a
everybody it
double.
was Rico Petrocelli.
Yeah, Yaz gets a double off the old man.
Wow.
Satchel leaves him at third and shut down everybody else over three of the most remarkably pitched innings in baseball history. It didn't get the credence that it deserved because it was Satchel and Charlie Finley.
Right.
And most people just did not like Charlie Finley. But here's the thing. Rico Petrocelli, who you just mentioned, he and I did an interview a few years ago. And Bill, he told me this. He said, Bob, we all went to the plate hacking away at that old man. They thought they were going to light this old dude up and that this was just going to be batting practice.
Wow.
And he says at that time, Satchel's fastball was still 86, 87 miles per hour, and he's painting the black, and they're going back to the dugout in disbelief that they couldn't hit this old man. And you're right. Charlie Finley had a rocking chair in the bullpen for Satchel, and it gets even better. And a nurse.
A nurse. That's right. A nurse. They needed one for the Red Sox after that night, right?
And you know who relieved Satchel in that game?
Who was in there?
The great Diego Seguí.
Diego Seguí.
Yes.
Longtime Kansas City Kansas.
Long time
Oh,
Kansas City Kids. I miss him dearly.
Oh.
He was such a dear friend. We
Yes.
kind of coined, made him an honorary Negro Leaguer. He did a lot of events with those Negro League players. We've lost them all now.
Yes.
But Diego was part of the Negro League's Baseball Museum family. He passed away last year. I miss him dearly.
Yes. I come into this building and something just happens. There's like a wave pouring over you.
Oh, no. I get it. You feel the spirit.
I mean, you've been here more than anybody. I mean, do you still get that feeling when you walk in?
Absolutely. Every day. And I think for me, Bill, it's the understanding that anytime you do something that you know is bigger than you are, there's no more gratifying feeling that you can get.
Yeah.
And, of course, when I walk into a place that Buck O'Neill called home for so long, and you still feel the spirits here. You still feel his spirit here, but you also feel the spirit of those who are represented here. And what I always try to help our guests understand, and particularly those who have not been to the museum before, I think they think it's going to be a sad story.
Yes.
Because we understand that this story is anchored against the ugliness of American segregation, a horrible chapter in this country's history. But that's not the story, folks. The story here is what emerged out of segregation. This wonderful story of triumph and conquest. And as I always say, it's all based on one small, simple principle. You won't let me play with you in the major leagues? Okay.
Watch this.
I'll create my own league.
Absolutely.
And what a league it was. It produced some of the greatest black and Hispanic ball players this game has ever seen. They could play, and that's what Buck wanted you to know. You know, he wanted you to know we could play, and they could play. And when I asked them, Bill, when I first got involved with the museum as a volunteer way back in 1993, who knew?
When you were 6?
Oh, man. And I asked him, I said, well, Buck, what motivated you to want to build a Negro League Baseball Museum? And, of course, his answer was succinct but very poignant, so that we would be remembered. Mm-hmm. He did not want them to be forgotten, not for just what they gave the game of baseball, but what they gave this country. Yes. And I think that is what people, when they come to this museum, that's what they experience. You walk away from this story cheering, but you're cheering the power of the human spirit to persevere and prevail. They refuse to allow any of the obstacles that were in front of them during that segregated society to stop them from playing this game. And even when I take my current major leaguers through this museum, that's the thing we talk about, love of the game. You play this game because you love it. And I know sometimes we as fans can get a little fickle because we equate everything to money. And because the guys today can make a great living playing this game, we just naturally assume that they don't love it as much as the guys of yesteryear. Yeah, they do. You're still playing a game that you played as a kid for free. And I can tell you now, if they had to play it for free, they would still be playing baseball. But as I also share with them, you will never see a greater love of the game than you do when you walk through that museum. And that spirit, it just comes pouring out of this place. It does. Yeah, and that's what makes it special. So now, I still get that, and I've been involved with this museum now for 33 years. Wow. Yeah, hard to believe.
You know, Bob, and I'm glad you brought all that up because I was going to bring it up, and it touched me because I remember the first time I came through here. And not only was I astounded by the greatness of, like you said, the athleticism in the players, but and I hate to even admit this, but I left a little sad because I thought, man, how can this happen a few years before I was born? I mean, but it wasn't the sadness that was the greatest emotion that I had, but I still have a little bit of it when I come through here because I think, man, wait a minute, I'm damn near 70 years old and it
happened in my lifetime.
Yeah, and I'm like, no. And then I think back to I was 10 watching that old man in a rocket chair go out there and blow away the Red Sox.
So what would he have been like?
Oh, that's exactly.
If we had
you
gotten
just
him
read
in
my
his prime.
And I thought, that happened not that long ago. What's going on? You know.
No.
So you know what I'm saying.
I absolutely understand what you're saying. And as baseball fans, we were cheated. We were cheated.
Yes.
Because we should have seen all the great stars take the field and compete with and against each other. See, now, they did that in Latin America. Yeah. There was no separation when they went to those Spanish-speaking countries. We played together. And that's why the major leaguers, particularly the superstar major leaguers, they were never concerned about integration. Yeah, because number one, Ted Williams wasn't concerned about integration because Ted Williams could play. It was the average major leaguer that was concerned about integration because if you allow this influx of great black and brown talent in, I might lose my job. Yeah. And that was really fear kept these guys out as much as the social conditions of our time. But see, what we also know, and this still holds true to this day, great athletes appreciate others. Great athletes. Yeah. And the only way you can measure how good you are is by competing with and against the best. And so when Ted Williams, if you guys may recall this, Ted Williams on his own induction speech, during his own induction speech, his own ceremony, 1966, stood there and advocated on behalf of Negro League players to be included in the National Baseball Hall of Fame. He would go on to say he hoped one day the likes of Satchel Paige and Josh Gibson would be voted into the National Baseball Hall of Fame as symbols of those great black stars who weren't there because they'd never been given an opportunity. 5 years later, Satchel becomes the first from the Negro Leagues to be inducted into the National Baseball Hall of Fame for his Negro Leagues career. Jackie was already in, but Jackie went in for his Major League career, not his brief period in the Negro Leagues. Ted Williams knew they could play. He knew that they could play. Yeah, because he had played with them and against them. You mentioned Joe DiMaggio. Joe DiMaggio knew that they could play. Joe DiMaggio could play as well. So he wasn't worried about these guys coming in. No, but that average guy was absolutely concerned. Yeah. And that's human nature. You want to protect that weren't, it's not like it was 30 teams like it is now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, like 16?
Like maybe 16,
yeah.
And so you try to protect what you think is yours. But when Jackie Robinson walks into that clubhouse with the Brooklyn Dodgers, guess what? He took somebody's job. Yeah. He took made a job of a teammate and a friend. Yeah. And so the other guys were nervous about this.
Yeah. Wow.
Well, and now, if I'm not mistaken, there's about 36 members of the Hall of Fame now.
Yeah, no, they're
Am I off?
There are over 30
Yeah.
that are in the National Baseball Hall of Fame, and I'm so pleased that every 3 years there's still the possibility that a Negro Leaguer could be on the ballot. It gets more and more difficult because now they're on the ballot with former major leaguers as well, and sometimes these votes are kind of neutralized. But we still are hopeful, and we'll be out there advocating. John Donaldson should be in the National Baseball Hall of Fame. John Donaldson from mid-Missouri, Glasgow, Missouri. And John Donaldson is one of the greatest pitchers in baseball history that very few folks know anything about. And thanks to the video game MLB The Show, a lot of people are now learning about John Donaldson because he's actually in the video game. And last season, when the St. Louis Cardinals were in town, Victor Scott and Jordan Walker came over to see me to tour the museum. And the minute they saw me, the first question they had, who is this dude, John Donaldson? Tell me about this dude, John Donaldson, because in the video game, nobody can hit him. Well, John Donaldson is the inventor of the slider.
Yep.
Yeah, he is the inventor of the slider. And John Donaldson had the same juice that Satchel had. As a matter of fact, Satchel Paige idolized John Donaldson, which tells you how great John Donaldson was. And John Donaldson was a great left-handed pitcher, over 400 verifiable wins.
Yes.
Over 5,000 strikeouts and all these other incredible feats, was a great two-way star in the early era of black baseball. And that's what hurts him, is that we learn from the likes of Buck O'Neil, Monty Irvin. Their contemporaries were the guys in the 30s and 40s. But that early era, that ball player that started in the late 1800s into the early 1900s before the Negro Leagues were established, they don't get as much love. And so I am still out there pitching and advocating for John Donaldson to get into the National Baseball Hall of Fame. I hope the next time that the opportunity presents itself that he'll garner enough votes to get in. He absolutely deserves to be in.
Two things I want to bring up. First, you beat me to it about the video game. So you're in it, right?
I am
like in a video game.
I never dreamt. And I saw myself doing a lot of things. But, y'all, I never dreamt that I'd be in a video game. And that video game has been the biggest thing this museum has ever done. Because what it has now done is open up the Negro Leagues to millions upon millions of young people and young adults who play these games. And I don't know if they would have ever thought about the Negro Leagues until we put them in the video game. And once we did, and let me tip my cap to my friends over at Sony's San Diego studios, because they were very smart. They didn't just throw the players in with random stats. They created a mode called storylines. So you have to learn about this player before you can then engage with the player as part of game activity, game play. And that's where I come in. I tell the stories. And so you put these short vignettes together. You put a killer soundtrack behind it. And I guess a guy that tells a pretty good story. And voila. And it has been tremendously successful. The new game comes out in March. And we will ultimately have 10 players added to the game. It will debut, I believe, with 4 players. That was just announced here recently, the 4 players who will be part of the game. And so, it's been huge. And perhaps I was a little naive on just how big the gaming platform really is. It has surpassed music. It has surpassed film. And it's not just kids playing it here in the U.S. We're talking about around the globe that are playing this game, and they're learning about the Negro Leagues. And what really makes me so proud is that we've won a number of educational awards for how we're using a video game to teach history.
Wow. Well, and that's it. You're educating a whole new crop. They will know automatically who Satchel Paige and Josh Gibson and Buck Leonard and Cool Papa Bill and Oscar Charleston and all these folks are, which is good.
The kids come into the museum because they saw the museum in the video game. So
Yeah.
now they want to come down
that's
and
great.
see the museum.
Yeah.
And they all want to show me how Satchel did his double pump wind up.
Yep.
They want to do the high leg kick like Satchel, and they want to throw the B-ball like Satchel threw the B-ball.
That's so good. That's too good.
You know, Bob, we're down here in a special room that is honoring those folks who not necessarily played the game, but were the innovators, were the managers, and they're often forgotten. You know, how special is it? You know, Tony and Tony Jr., our producer, we got down here early. We're just walking, and then, oh, wait, we got to set up for a show. You know?
We had not seen this,
This is
exhibit yet.
Yeah,
How
no,
special is this room for you?
I'm very proud of it because we debuted this exhibit called Leaders and Innovators in May of last year. And the motivation for me was that last year marked the 50th anniversary of the great Frank Robinson becoming Major League Baseball's first full-time African-American manager. Now think about what I just said. That's the 50th anniversary. That's 1975. You don't get your first black manager until 1975. Yeah. And so when we examine the hierarchy of baseball's integration, naturally it starts with Jackie Robinson breaking the color barrier in 1947. Buck O'Neil becomes the major's first black coach 15 years later in 1962 with the Chicago Cubs. Frank Robinson becomes the first full-time black manager 28 years after Jackie breaks the color barrier, then with the Cleveland Indians. And Bill Lucas, who's right behind us, will become the first African-American GM in 76 with the Atlanta Braves. So I say that to say this, those opportunities were far and few and in between for those Negro League managers, those risk-taking executives. Those opportunities never presented itself. Baseball looked at the baseball field. So they siphoned this great talent out of the Negro Leagues, but with very few jobs for these guys. A handful of them got a chance to scout. Yeah, a handful got a chance to scout. But there were no front office jobs for those owners of teams who had to basically give up their business. They took one for the team.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they took one for the team, man. And they had to give up their business. And so we wanted to tell the story about some of these brilliant baseball minds. The late, great George Altman, who just not too long passed away, had a great career. He played here for the Kansas City Monarchs for Buck. Buck would then take him on over to the Chicago Cubs, where George had a great career in Major League Baseball, and then had a rebirth of his career over in Japan.
Yes.
And George Altman, prior to his death, swore then that Buck O'Neil was the greatest manager he ever played for. He would say he knew when to put his arm around your shoulder, and he knew when to kick you in your run to get the most out of you. And Buck would have been a brilliant manager had he been given the opportunity to do so. And even as a barrier-breaking coach in Major League Baseball, he would tell me, he said, Bob, I was proud that I was the first black coach, but I couldn't stick out my chest because I knew all of these other great black baseball minds who were more than capable of waving a guy home. But those opportunities just simply did not present themselves. And we wanted to bring that chapter, that story to the forefront, along with all the innovations that came out of the Negro Leagues that most people have no idea that they started in the Negro Leagues. The batting helmet.
Yes.
Shin guards. And the most prolific of them all, night baseball.
Yes.
Folks, night baseball originated in the Negro Leagues 5 years before they ever played a night game in the major leagues.
Wow.
Now, our history book is going to tell us that the first professional night baseball game, 1935, Crossley Field, Cincinnati, Ohio, the Cincinnati Reds versus the Philadelphia Phillies. Well, the history book is wrong. The first professional night baseball game, 1930, and it featured our very own Kansas City Monarchs. J.L. Wilkinson, who owned the Monarchs, literally mortgaged everything he had to pioneer night baseball. Portable, generated light towers. So not only could they play a night game here in Kansas City, fellas. They could load them up on the truck
And take them with them.
and play a night game virtually anywhere.
What a story. That 5 years before that
5
game,
years
Cincinnati.
before they ever played under the lights in the major leagues. And even when we look at the globalization of our game, and as you guys know, baseball is a global game.
Yeah.
There's so many ethnicities. When you look up a major league roster today, so many ethnicities. It was the Negro Leagues that helped make it the global game that it is today. We would take our brand of professional baseball into Canada. They were oftentimes the first Americans to play in many Spanish-speaking countries. And as I remind my guests, when those players went to those Spanish-speaking countries, they were treated like heroes. So you're going to stay in the finest hotels, eat in the finest restaurants that those countries had to offer, come back home, and you were treated like a second-class citizen.
Exactly.
So as a result, a lot of Negro League players would call those Spanish-speaking countries home for one simple reason. In those countries, they weren't black baseball players. They were just baseball players. That's all they ever wanted to be. And then what really is so eye-opening, the fact that it would be the Negro Leagues that would introduce the American brand of professional baseball to the Japanese, going all the way back to 1927. 7 years before Babe Ruth and his All-Americans ventured to Japan, and they've been commonly credited with having taken the American brand of professional baseball to the Japanese. It's not true. It's a team called the Philadelphia Royal Giants, a barnstorming team of Negro Leaguers who would go to Japan in 1927, play a 24-game exhibition series. They go 23-0-1 on the tour. The tour was so successful that 7 years later, Ruth and his All-Americans would make that
they
trek
did it.
over to Japan.
And Bob, going to Japan in 1927, how long did that take you?
Well, that was
A
that.
month?
They say that slow boat to China. But
I mean, I'm thinking, what the heck?
they started in Hawaii. So they had made it over to Hawaii, and then they got on the boat and headed over to Japan for this goodwill tour. And here's the thing. The Japanese absolutely adored them. They called them gentle giants because the Negro League players didn't go over and try to beat them as bad as they could. They would teach them the game, and as a result, the Japanese and their fans adored those players. Two future Hall of Famers on that 1927 Philadelphia Royal Giant team. The legendary Raleigh Biz Mackey, who would teach a young Roy Campanella how to catch. Yeah, Campy joins a team, guys, in the Negro Leagues called the Baltimore Elite Giants. Now, it's spelled elite,
Yeah.
but it's pronounced elite. Yeah, you make those Negro Leaguers mad if you call them the elite Giants. They were the elite Giants, and Roy Campanella joins the elites, believe this or not, when he was 15 years old. Can you imagine a 15-year-old kid catching professionally? Now, granted, he was not your typical 15-year-old. He was a 15-year-old man-child, but he was 15 nevertheless. And Biz Mackey takes him under his wing, taught him the art of catching, and of course, Roy Campanella will become a 3-time MVP before a tragic car accident left him paralyzed and cut short what was still a Hall of Fame career. Campy is one of the players that will be in the video game, but he will be in the game as a Baltimore Elite Giant. And then Andy Cooper, also in the National Baseball Hall of Fame.
Wow.
That's, we've talked a lot about Buck, but I really want to focus in on him for a little bit.
Yeah.
Of course, the three of us got opportunities to meet him. I did and got to talk to him many times. And I don't think I've ever met a more humble human being in my life who deserved to puff his chest out a little bit, but I don't think you knew him better than I did, but I never saw that.
No, he was one of the most approachable, accessible superstars.
Yeah.
Because he became this big superstar way after his playing career. He had been a star in the Negro Leagues, but he became a mega star after the Ken Burns documentary on the history of baseball, and he stole the show. Yeah, he stole the show. Buck was 82 years old when he made that appearance in the Ken Burns documentary, and I'll never forget The headline in the Kansas City Star said, "A star is born at 82." Yeah, when most of us are shutting it down, it jettisoned an entire new career for Buck, and he had reached celebrity status, but you would never know it. He was as approachable as anyone you would ever meet, and if he didn't know you, he wanted to know you. And I witnessed this. I'm watching this. You knew you were in the presence of someone special because I'm there. And we would be in the airport, and he would go over, "My name is Buck O'Neil. What's yours?" And they would engage in a conversation. And by the time we were leaving to go to our respective gates to catch our flights, they were sharing an embrace as if they'd known each other all their lives.
Wow.
The man absolutely never met a stranger in his life, and he was energized by people. Yeah, and he had an innate spirit that just seems to touch everybody everywhere that he went. Yeah, if you had an encounter with Buck O'Neil, you were likely better, than you were before you met him.
Let me tell you a quick story of something like that. This has got to be 20, 22 years ago. I would go down to spring training often since the Royals moved to Surprise. So we'd go down to spring training. Me and a bunch of friends of mine from around the country would go every year. And I had my youngest boy with me. And we're in Scottsdale, and we're walking up the steps. And my son Nick says, "Dad, I think that's Buck O'Neil." And I said, "Yeah, it is." And and so he kind of, shyly, and Buck says, "Come here, son." He goes, and my son's got his glove with him and a ball in there. He goes, "Are you any good?" He said, "Well, I maybe, I don't know." He goes, "Well, go on down the aisle there. It's about a half hour before the game." And he goes down the aisle. He goes, "Go ahead and throw me one hard." I go, "Nick, don't throw it real hard. He's old. Don't, you know." So he throws him a pitch. He sticks one hand out and catches it with one hand. And he said, "Hang on to that glove now, son." And he throws him another pitch, and he goes, "Come on over here." And he says, "What's your name?" He says, "Oh, my name's Nick." He says, "Well, my name's Buck." Gives him a big hug. Yeah. Sitting right in front of him was Orlando Cepeda.
Oh, wow.
And that's Nick didn't know who Orlando was, so I tell him, I go, so I told him who it was. And so that's our Buck O'Neil story from spring training.
That's a good one.
And it was
Orlando was a dear friend of ours as well. I miss him also. His father turned down an opportunity to play in the Negro Leagues because he didn't want to deal with the Jim Crow of the U.S. Now, he played with and against a lot of players in Latin America. Mm-hmm. But Orlando, we had the honor of inducting him into our Hall of Fame
I was there
a number of years ago. I miss him dearly as well.
Bob, everything in this place fascinates me, but the one area I spend so much time at is courtesy of a rock and roll legend from Toronto. Tell us about Geddy Lee.
Yeah, no, it's an incredible story. We have a collection of single-signed Negro League player autographed baseballs that were donated by Geddy Lee. And it's very prominently displayed in the museum. And when my Canadian fans in particular come to the museum, they see that collection and they ask me, "Is that the Geddy Lee?" Yes, it is.
Crazy.
The Geddy Lee, lead singer, bass guitarist for the legendary Hall of Fame Canadian rock group Rush. And a great story on how we got the baseballs. Rush was playing a concert here in Kansas City several years before the band officially retired. Mm-hmm. Of course, they've now announced a reunion tour.
Right.
And so Geddy had a friend that lived here who says, "I'm going to take you by to see the Negro League Baseball Museum." Well, like most who come here, he fell in love with the museum. Yeah. Well, after leaving, that collection of single-signed Negro League player autographed baseballs come up in an auction. And he decides that he was going to bid on them with the hope and intent of winning them so that he could donate them back to us. Now, we had no idea that this was going on. Well, he wins the bid. And his office calls and says, Geddy Lee has a few baseballs he'd like to donate.
Oh, man.
Would you all like to have them? Well, naturally, we say yes, but we're thinking 3 or 4 that
Yeah.
he might have picked up somewhere. Folks, it turned out to be 200. He has since donated an additional lot of 200, now giving the Negro League Baseball Museum one of the largest collection of single-signed Negro League player autographed baseballs anywhere in the world, and it's all due to the benevolence of one Geddy Lee, a white Canadian rocker. Yeah, who knew? But as I tell my guests, it just goes to show that the story has no boundaries.
True.
It has no limitations. It touches virtually everyone who experiences it. And in those cases, you've got Hall of Famers. You got guys who were cup of coffee guys in the Negro League, but they're all important to us because 99.9% of the names on display in those cases, they're all dead. We could not have gotten the opportunity to get the signatures even if we wanted them. And then you have novelty names like that of the legendary country western singer, Charlie Pride.
Charlie Pride.
And a lot of people did not know
Yep.
that Charlie Pride played in the Negro Leagues. As a matter of fact, Charlie Pride was a good pitcher in the Negro Leagues who made his way into the New York Yankees organization before he hurt his arm. It was after he hurt his arm that he then fell back on a pioneering country western music career some 70+ million albums sold later. We should all have a fallback career
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Charlie Pride because with
Unbelievable.
plan B is better than plan A. That's
Unbelievable.
pretty doggone good. And Charlie Pride was one of the founding members of the Negro League Baseball Museum. So I was very blessed to spend quite a bit of time with Mr. Pride. He would make a number of appearances here at the museum, and it was always funny. Anytime Charlie Pride showed up here, somehow or another, a guitar seemed to always appear.
I was gonna.
And he never passed up an opportunity to decide
Wow.
strumming it. And I would always tell him, I said, you made a whole lot more money singing than you would have pitching.
Yep.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. But another one that I miss dearly.
Oh, he's very reclusive. Jack White, the
Yeah.
creator of
Yeah.
the White Stripes, and he's made several trips here. And I happened to run into him downtown Kansas City one time, and I'm not going to go up and be all geeked out. I just simply said, "Hey, how'd you enjoy the Negro League?" And we talked for like 5-10 minutes.
Yeah.
Oh,
He's been instrumental in the refurbishing of Hamtramck Stadium in Detroit. He made a significant contribution
Okay.
to help restore Hamtramck Stadium there in Detroit, which was once home to the Negro Leagues.
Yes.
There. And so, yeah, he is certainly an avid Negro Leagues baseball history fan.
Wow.
I bet when a lot of the new generation of major league players come to Kansas City and maybe their first time through, and I'm sure their traveling secretary or somebody tells them,
Yeah.
you need to go to this place
Yeah.
while you're in this 3 or 4 game series. What's it like for a lot of these young kids that, you may see, just pick any player, in the big leagues that comes
yeah.
through here, and I'm sure they knew about it, but are just, what are their reactions, and what's that like to see that from this new generation of stars?
They're humbled.
Are they?
Yeah, they are humble. And I do think that it helps make them appreciate what they have.
Yeah.
Because as human beings, we are wired to complain. We're wired to complain. We're going to complain. We're going to find a reason to complain. Some of the coaches will say, my guys were crying about a late night charter flight.
Yeah.
A late night charter flight.
Yeah.
And then you come here and you hear the stories of how these guys could ride into a town on the bus, fill up the ballpark, but then not be able to get a meal from the same fans who had just cheered them, or not have a place to stay. And so they would sleep on the bus and eat their peanut butter and crackers until they could find a place that might offer them basic services. Yeah. But they never allowed that set of social circumstances to kill their love of the game. So what does that do for that young athlete? All of a sudden, that late night charter flight don't seem so bad after all. Right. It provides a perspective. It makes it relative in so many ways. And it's very humbling for those guys. And as I oftentimes tell them, it's still about the love of the game. Yeah. You won't see a greater example of love of the game than you do when you walk through that museum. And if you're going to play this game, you really should know the history of this game.
Yes.
Because no sport holds to its history, not quite like the way baseball does. It's the one sport where we consistently compare the stars of yesterday with the stars of today. It's almost kind of taken for granted that the stars in the NBA today and the stars in the NFL were better than their counterparts of yesteryear. But not baseball. Not baseball. Yep. And whoever your favorite baseball player was when you were a kid is going to be your favorite baseball player for the rest of your life.
Right.
And that's what baseball is. For me, it was Henry Aaron. Henry Aaron's my all-time favorite baseball player, my childhood idol as a kid growing up in Crawfordville, Georgia. And in my mind, there will never be a ball player better than Henry Aaron. And if he was better than Henry Aaron, I would never admit it.
A couple of things I wanted to ask you about that. We're talking about all these great players. If I'm not mistaken, wasn't it last year or maybe the year before, but it's been recent that Commissioner Manfred of Major League Baseball Commissioner had mentioned that they were going to combine and convert the statistics from the Negro League stars in that era into consolidate them with the Major League Baseball players. So, number one, have they done that?
Yes.
And okay, good. So
you're right. 2 years ago is when it actually became official. May 29th of 2024.
Okay, so
it became official.
So is Josh Gibson the home run king now?
You see, because they only looked at league games, it almost diminishes him for his power numbers. But he's now your all-time career batting average leader, 372. Oh. Single season batting record in 1943 when he only hit 466.
Only.
And as I always say, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that ain't going to be broken. See, but they only counted league games. So the Negro League didn't play as many games, in a season. Okay. And so it hurts his home run total.
We hit, 800?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you look at the pictures of Josh Gibson, folks, I don't see how anybody could doubt his power. Yeah. Because if you wanted an understanding of who might resemble Josh Gibson physically, think Bo Jackson as a catcher. Got Josh Gibson. Yep. Big, powerful forearms, big, powerful thighs, and great eyes. Yep. Buck O'Neil would describe Josh Gibson in this fashion, that he had the eyes of Ted Williams and the power of Babe Ruth rolled into one dynamic package. And it was a milestone, watershed moment for black baseball history to have the stats of the Negro Leagues integrated into the record books of Major League Baseball. And for those handful of Negro League players that are still alive, tremendous sense of pride. For the families of those who now have passed on, it meant a great deal to them as well. And for this museum, it meant a great deal. I was very honored to be part of that group. Now, I didn't do any of the research. I left that to the researchers. I dodged probability and statistics for about 4 years when I was at Park College, so they didn't want me computing these numbers. We turned that over to the people who were experts at it, and they did a yeoman's duty to bring these stats to the forefront. And I knew there would be some skeptics. You had the baseball purists who just are unwilling to accept that these guys were as good as their major league counterparts. And a guy wrote me shortly after it was announced, and he wrote me on social media, and he says, I just want this to be apples to apples. Yeah. And fellas, it took everything I had not to cuss, but I didn't. I kept my decorum, and I wrote him back. I said, sir, it can never be apples to apples because no major leaguer ever had to worry about where they were going to get something to eat. No major leaguer ever had to sleep on the bus. No major leaguer ever had to get dressed under the stands of the stadium that they were about to fill up, or not have a place where they could wash their uniforms. So if anything, it makes them be even better than perhaps we've given them credit for, to be able to overcome those kinds of challenges and still play this game. Because no matter what challenges they face getting to that ballpark, the people who came to see them said, hey, we heard y'all could play. Let me see what you got.
Yeah.
They had to put on a show, and they were going to give you a show. So no, it can't ever be apples to apples. No. But, you know, as I tried to help them understand, just because Josh Gibson is number one in the all-time career batting average leader, and it doesn't diminish Ty Cobb.
Right. No, of course not.
It doesn't diminish Ty Cobb. It just tells you how great Josh Gibson was. Right. And it should serve as a portal to a greater understanding and awareness. You should want to know who Josh Gibson is, who Oscar Charleston was, who Bullet Rogan, Boo June Wilson, Hilton Smith, all these legendary stars who would have been superstars in any league. As a baseball fan, you should want to know. And that's what they've done, is created an opportunity. I tell people all the time, you can never reduce the story of the Negro Leagues to just stats. Stats will never tell the picture of what these guys and how they committed themselves to America's national pastime.
Bob, I got to ask you something. This is just out of sheer ignorance on my part, but when the league was going, when the Negro Leagues were going, and these fellows were going from city to city, and they were playing to full houses, what were the audiences? Were they mainly black people? Were there white people that wanted to see these so-called stars? I mean, what was the audience?
It was always integrated. We always had an integrated audience. Predominantly they were black fans. But when we move into the late 30s and 40s, there were a lot of white fans. Because while the Negro Leagues had a lot of players that served in World War II, the superstars didn't get called in. Satchel was too old. Josh Gibson, Cool Papa Bell. These guys are still playing. They're filling up ballparks all over the country. And more times than not, we were sitting side by side in those games, watching those Negro League games. Now, in Major League games, we were separated more times than not by chicken wire. So the black fans would sit down the left or right field lines, be separated from white fans who sat in the rest of the ballpark. But at Negro League games, more times than not, we were sitting side by side, watching what many would say the best baseball being played in this country. And without question, folks, the most entertaining brand of baseball that was being played in this country. But no, it had tremendous appeal. And so with more white fans watching, now all of a sudden this push for integration was gaining momentum, because you're watching these guys play.
You know it's for real.
And that's what I'm saying. A baseball fan knows. A fan knows. And Buck would say the people that came to boo Jackie Robinson when he breaks Colorberry, they weren't baseball fans. They were haters. They came expressly to hurl hate and insults. A true baseball fan could care less what color you are. They just want to know you can play.
This is a never-ending story, which brings me to the point: expansion. And we saw you on TV in the last week and had a big announcement. We'd love for you to reiterate that here with the audience. There's going to be a $35 million expansion, and tell us about it.
And that number seems to be growing every day. So we got to hurry up and get this thing built, man. No, it's going to be built right around the corner from where we are, right there adjacent to the former Purcell YMCA, which, of course, is the birthplace of the Negro Leagues. The leagues were formed in that historic YMCA building on February 13th, 1920. And so to commemorate the 106th anniversary of the birth of the Negro Leagues, we made the announcement and unveiled the new renderings for what is going to be a Negro Leagues Baseball Museum campus. So the restored Purcell YMCA becomes the Buck O'Neill Education and Research Center, a new 35,000+ square foot Negro League Baseball Museum that's going to be built adjacent to that historic landmark. And then we also made the announcement of a Marriott-branded tribute hotel that will be called the Pennant, that will be built right into the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum. So we're creating what I call the nation's first Negro Leagues campus as the gateway into historic 18th and Vine and an international headquarters for black baseball and social history. And it is going to be absolutely transformative here in the historic 18th and Vine Jazz District. And so, as I tell folks, I am as excited as you could possibly be about having to raise $35-40 million.
Bob, if there's anybody in this town that can do it, you can. And I know that your friend Bill over here has got a couple mil he can loan. Oh, yeah.
You know, can you imagine how happy Buck is right now?
I just got to believe, Bill, that he's smiling down.
Yes.
He's smiling down. And, you know, I'm self-motivated, but I'm also motivated to do him proud.
Yes.
And we're going to build him a new house.
Yes.
You know, I call the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum affectionately the house that Buck built. And I don't say that with any disrespect to any and everyone who has had a hand in help shape the growth of this institution, but it does not happen without Buck.
No, sure.
He dedicated the last 16 years of his life to build this institution. And when we lost him in 2006, it was, as you know, very difficult, you know. But it just, for me, it reaffirmed my commitment to doing whatever I could to keep his legacy and the legacy of the more than 3,000 men and women who called the Negro Leagues home.
The month of February, Black History Month, and you have a special going on that I'd love for you to tell the audience too. We still have some time left in February.
Still got some time, so it's free February, courtesy of our friends over at the Kansas City Royals Foundation, who now for the 5th consecutive year has made admission to this museum during the month of February to celebrate Black History Month absolutely free of charge to any and everyone who wants to experience this museum. It is such a tremendous outreach that the Royals have embarked on with us over these last 5 years. And the proceeds that will be generated from this, obviously that's important to the museum. But the access that it creates is even more important. Because I know sometimes those of us who are fortunate, we'll hear $10 and we'll say, that's such a nominal fee. But $10 in a lot of households, particularly those who have multiple kids in school, that's not nominal. And what the Royals Foundation has done is taken away that financial burden from those families. And so we're seeing a lot of school-age kids make their way to the museum who perhaps would not have come to the museum without this incredible gesture from our friends over the Kansas City Royals Foundation. And I'm so thrilled to see so many people taking advantage of this offer. We got one more week left to do it. And I would encourage all of you who are listening, take time out, come down and experience what I believe, and I'm biased, the best baseball history museum anywhere in the world. And that is with no disrespect to my friends in Cooperstown, New York, at that hallowed hall known as the National Baseball Hall of Fame, because it is a tremendous edifice, particularly if you like stuff.
Yes.
They got tons and tons and tons of stuff. But this museum is not about the stuff.
Yes.
It's about a story, a very powerful, compelling, inspirational story that is just amazing. And that's what people gain when they come here. Now, there's some stuff to go along with it that helps bring that story to life, but it's the story that drives this. And a new home is going to give us more room to tell more stories. Yeah, and I find it interesting, Bill, that young people now gravitate to authenticity and now storytelling, which is why our podcasts have just taken off. You know, I don't know if the kids like to read anything long form anymore, but they'll sit there and listen to a podcast all day long. And I've been very fortunate. My podcast, which is called Black Diamonds, Untold Stories of the Negro Leagues that I do in partnership with my friends over at Sirius XM Radio. And we've compiled over 100 episodes of this internationally recognized podcast, which has opened up Negro Leagues history to another generation of baseball fans. So, sometimes I have to remind myself, those who saw the Ken Burns documentary, well, they my age or better.
Yeah.
And there's a new generation that are hearing these stories for the very first time. And it was the success of the podcast that led Sony to knock on our doors to talk about putting the Negro Leagues into the video game.
Wow.
And so podcasting, authenticity, storytelling overall has become a critical way in which we reach this new generation.
Well, Bob, I got to thank you for giving us the opportunity to do that. You're a treasure to the city, as Bill said in the beginning, in the introduction. But not only that, we hear the stories. You're the keeper of the history, the sharer of the history, but you're also promoting social advancement in a difficult time right now in our history. And to be able to do that, and I think people that'll see this and come to this fabulous place will agree.
Well, I hope so, because that's exactly what we're doing. I tell people, and I don't shy away from this, is that the Negro League Baseball Museum is one of this nation's preeminent social justice, civil rights institutions, but folks, it's just seen through the lens of baseball. But perhaps even more important is triumph over that adversity.
Yeah.
And that's what you get when you come here.
Bob Kendrick is the president of the Negro League Baseball Museum. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate you, sir.
Oh, man, it is absolutely my pleasure. Thank y'all for coming and hanging out with us here at the Negro League Baseball Museum, and thank you for the opportunity to be on the show.
Yes, sir. Thank you. We'll be back next week with another episode of Bill and Tony's Excellent Adventure, live from the Sandy's Restaurant Studios in Blue Springs. Don't forget, now all our full podcast episodes are on YouTube, Spotify, Patreon. Hook up with us on TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram, and we'll be back with another special guest next week, too. He's Bill Althouse. I'm Tony Stevens. It's Bill and Tony's Excellent Adventure. See ya.